Oh, that
Hi,
was cool.
Stephen. Welcome.
Hi, hello. Hi, Rihanna. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And I'm just so curious. Your Instagram name is Into the Universe, and you spell it uniquely. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up there, and maybe what kind of child you were.
Mm, okay. Um, to think about and really pinpoint what kind of child I was, I guess it starts from when I was a toddler. I grew up in the DC, Maryland, Virginia, also known as the DMV. If you know, you know. um, but I was born in Virginia and I grew up in Maryland, but I went to school in DC and I moved a few times when I was younger. And so each time I moved, I had to kind of gather myself and understand what was consistent. And after a while, I realized, most people have an idea of what they think of a home being. It's a physical place. And for me, with the transition, it felt more like home was always where I was because it was in within me. And I always just resonated with that idea. And so now I look at life and I look at other people as not only extensions of me, but um, an experience that is meant to be shared amongst others. And so the idea of the universe is kind of a little different than that, but it began with my partner and I going to the U of A, and we were living in this dorm, well, more student housing named the Seasons in Tucson. And I was working there as well as a front desk representative. And after a couple weeks, couple months, even a year, I really loved it. I was enjoying myself. And then I hit, I think, the age 25 after I graduated. I was like looking at my check. I was thinking, wait a minute. It's only like $375 here after 2 weeks. Some math isn't adding up. I'm not going to live off of this. What can I do? And I looked at my partner and I asked her, do you want to go to Phoenix? Because I'm going to Phoenix. I don't know about you. That's up to you. I can't make a decision for you, but do you want to go? And it would be a big decision for her because this would be the first time that she's like far away from her parents who live in Tucson as well. And so she ultimately said yes. And we got up to Phoenix and she immediately started to have panic attacks, anxiety attacks lasting for hours upon hours of hyperventilating, just feeling like the world is coming in, many different things. And I had just gotten a job as a pharmaceutical representative. I'm like, I'm feeling good about myself. I'm gone all day, but I feel like I'm contributing to our new family. And meanwhile, she's having panic attacks and anxiety attacks throughout the whole day. And I feel terrible. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? I'm 26 years old. How can I help you? I don't, what do I do? And to kind of really paint the picture, it's 2017, end of 2016, when the opioid epidemic is like front page news everywhere. And I'm a part of that. I'm a pharmaceutical representative actively profiting along with some doctors off of prescribing these different things that I'm promoting. And so I'm thinking, Stephen, do we want to be a part of something like this? Do we want to actively try to help your queen by suggesting she goes to doctors? It didn't feel right. Something just didn't feel right. Have you ever had that feeling where it's just like you don't know why, but you just know internally the energy is just off. It doesn't feel right. Has that
Yeah,
happened?
you get that conventional wisdom coming in, wisdom, and you're like, nothing about that feels right. But I feel like I'm crazy for not following it. And
Mm,
sometimes you just don't anyway, right? And it usually ends up being the right answer.
and why is that? Why is that? It's, you know, I learned recently that our gut is our second brain. It has more nerve endings than our actual brain. That told me everything I needed to know. At that point in life, I was eating everything. I was drinking Gatorade like it was nothing. I was going to fast food places like it was nothing. And I never really thought about what you consume. And people always would say it's an age-old adage of you are what you eat. But they never really explained what that meant. But think about it, like to charge our computer or charge our phones, we wouldn't use applesauce because it's not the correct thing to help power that machine. I was eating all kinds of stuff with no regard for what that might be doing to how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and what I experience in everyday life. And so she was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And so I suggested, you know, I've heard a couple stories about herbalism. I've heard a couple stories about CBD. I've heard a couple stories about what overall hormone balancing and how important it may be to every individual out there. Something that we don't really think about, or at least I never did. And so she did a little research as well, and she tried herbalism, some different teas specifically meant for balancing herbs or balancing your hormones. And then she also tried CBD. And at the beginning of one of her anxiety attacks, her energy just calmed within 5 minutes. And I was like, damn, this typically lasts 4 to 5 hours. And there seems to be nothing that really calmed it down. That wasn't natural. Like, I'm not talking natural flavors, what they put on these ingredients on the boxes and stuff. I'm talking straight from the earth. Um, that really resonated with me. And that was like the first pillar to, okay, when you're in it, this can help you, but what helps prevent it? And I came across holistic wellness and mindfulness and the idea of being separate from your physical body and your mind. You are just this entity, and being able to empower yourself with different tools such as breath work, meditation, yoga, stretch the body, twist the body in different ways that helps detoxify the different areas. All this was just so foreign. I was like, what? Why was this never taught in school? Why was I never exposed to any of this at home? Do other people know about this? Are other people doing this? This is so important. This can really change people's lives. And so the idea of combining that with community, back to how I grew up, at one point I felt like, damn, where is the place where I just feel like I belong? You're going to different schools, you're having to make new friends everywhere you go, different camps, and ultimately you grow this identity of shit, I belong wherever I am. I belong everywhere because home is within me. And so I really wanted to bring that as an overall um, thing to other people and call it the
How
universe.
old, how old do you think you were when you kind of got that concept that my home is wherever I am? Because I didn't figure that out till like a couple weeks ago.
You know, I would say it's a it's a practice. The first thought of it came when I remember I was in church and I had gone on again, off again to this specific church because sometimes we went, sometimes we didn't. But there would be different friend groups in there. And I remember one day I came in there and, well, actually, there's two instances, but the first instance at this church was these guys were sitting there around the same age, maybe a little older, maybe a couple a little younger. I saw that, by the way. No worries. And I was sitting there and I hadn't gotten my hair cut for a while. I wanted to grow it out. And I remember them making fun of it. I remember them drawing a picture of what my hair looked like. And I felt embarrassed. I felt like I didn't belong. And that was the first instance. And I was like in third grade. The second instance was when I was in fourth grade. And I was in after school. And a couple of the guys were all huddled around, giggling or whatever. And I'm like, yo, what are you laughing about? And they had written my name. My last name at that point was Bonner, Bonner. And they had wrote it as Boner. And I was like, and they were laughing. I didn't know what Boner meant back then. So it really made me feel like I was an outsider. I was like, nah, never again. Never again. I belong everywhere I am. Take up space. I'm here. My energy will be felt everywhere I go. So yeah, that's ultimately where it began. But like I said, it's a daily practice. There will be situations in which, a few years ago, there were interviews I would go to or I was about to go to, and I would find out that it's a group setting. And the idea of being late to the group setting made me reminisce on those times in which people were all together and they had a camaraderie, and maybe I wasn't in on it and I felt like an outsider. And so I would skip interviews. I'll pull up to the parking lot and I'll feel this pressure of, uh-oh, it's back again. And I would just dip out. And after a while, I began to realize, I'm the main character in this story. It felt like I was a part of so many other people's stories. And I was like, no, never again. I am the main character of this story. And it kind of reminds you of like movies or books where the main character is going through some wild stuff. And then they realize, wait a minute, I've got the power. And then the whole second half of the storyline just shifts to empowerment and stepping into everything as I'm him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting because the way that, like, I always saw myself as the main character in my story and I didn't move around a lot. So I never had the experience where I needed to fit in with new people, really. I grew up around the same people my whole life and I found it pretty boring. But also it was like, I had this very tragic story going on. It was just very victim oriented and had a lot of people pleasing in it. And that has a lot to do with the way I was raised and the people that were around me. But also it carried forward into adulthood where I'm like, wait a minute, I am the main character and I am not here to be a tragedy or to serve everybody around me. Like I need to, so it's so cool how different humans just have this different iteration of kind of the same thing.
Absolutely. Where do you think people pleasing comes from? Because like
well,
it's so prominent.
Oh yeah, it comes from in my case it came from feeling unwanted as from a very early age. Even in the womb, I was an accident. I was referred to as an accident. And my mother had just gone through a very traumatic breakup where her ex-husband was physically abusive and had tried to kill her after she left. And she didn't, in the 80s, people didn't process trauma. It wasn't common. So she didn't process any of it. She just fled and then got remarried, and shortly, within a couple of years, was pregnant with me. So she had that terror living in her body. So that was transferred to me, because that's how that works. It trauma changes our DNA, changes our neural pathways, and then we transfer it to our offspring. And so there was also like my dad, she didn't marry, like my dad was also playing mind games, verbally abusive, very manipulative, and felt a lot of financial stress. And so having another baby was like, oh God, no, we don't need that. So I think it comes from feeling like you don't belong at a very early age, and doing anything you can to make everyone around you happy so that you don't get left, so that you don't get abandoned, because as a child, that if you're abandoned, you're dead, right? That's something that's obvious. But when you don't realize you're doing that, you kind of keep living out that pattern. And then you're an adult and you're like, oh, I'm still thinking that I'm going to be abandoned, even though I'm supporting myself and I have my own kids that I'm supporting. It's like, oh, wait a minute. And so we didn't learn to deal with the things that happen when we were little. And when we're little, we make meaning out of, small comments. Mm-hmm. They become our identity. We're in a state of hypnosis for the first 7 years of life. So when we don't, people, even I've been to a therapist who didn't want to talk about my childhood, who thought that was a waste of time. And so there's even been that happening in therapy, where it's like, no, we don't need to talk about our feelings. We don't need to talk about our childhoods. That's stupid. That's petty. That's for babies. We just need to get over it and keep pushing forward. Well, if we don't address those deep things that are stuck in our subconscious and that are forming our beliefs, we're not going to progress after a certain point.
1000%. That's almost like an architect just disregarding the foundation when thinking about adding anything to the building. It's like, what? What do you mean? That makes no sense.
That's
that makes me also think that, and not in your case, but in general, like you said, there's little comments that are forming meaning in a child, and sometimes a parent can become a child's first bully without even really knowing it, just simply by saying different things. And that's why verbiage is so important. Like I've changed even in my fatherhood journey of just realizing how to speak to my son and how to raise a king and not somebody who's just strictly obedient to anybody and what they say, or anybody that's older, and just speaking to them with a yes brain rather than a no brain. That has been a major shift. And I've seen some different videos where people speak to their daughter in such a loving way sometimes, and then their son, they're extra aggressive. And I don't know if it's as ego or if that's just the way they believe that they should speak with them because of how they were spoken to. But I even realized when I remember Cristiano, my son, was 6 months old, and at one point he was just getting into everything. He was crying, he was getting into everything, naturally just exploring and communicating his emotions. And that right there at that point was triggering. Why was that triggering? Well, I hadn't handled my own self-care. I hadn't taken care of, or what I like to call, preheating my mind for the day. When you don't take care of yourself, when you don't preheat your food, you're setting yourself up for a situation in which you're not going to be prepared. And that's never fun. That's never fun. And so I had to really change how I showed up for the day, for myself, for my partner, for my son. And that ultimately helped me think, maybe there are other parents out there as well that, in a way, become their child's whole idea of what the world is based off of little comments and things like that.
Yeah,
It's kind of
absolutely.
scary.
It is. It is. It's also just a lot of pressure as a parent. You're like, oh my God. I think back to all the things I've said and done and the look on my face and that. And then you can get really over. And when you're a people pleaser and you over self-analyze, you can start being like, oh my God, I've really, you have to learn to love all the parts of yourself and be at home with them. But two things that you said, the concept of raising a king. I'd love to hear more about what you envision that as being, and then how you preheat yourself or warm yourself up for the day.
So the idea of raising a king, and a king to me is somebody that is very self-aware, very sure and confident in who they are and the love for themselves. They set boundaries and they honor their own boundaries. They are very in tune with taking care of every aspect of themselves, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, and anything else that may entail as well. Somebody that respects everybody, but listens and allows influence of only a few. Everybody shouldn't have access to influence you, but you should listen to the wide range of what's out there and then choose a few that actually you align with. Somebody that is really, really compassionate, empathetic. All those things signal power and doesn't have to exude the power unless necessary. So that's a king to me. To answer your second, thank you. How do I preheat my mind? Well, there's a couple different ways I like to do it, and everybody has their own sauce. So there's no wrong way to do it. But the intention of doing it is really the key. And that is what ultimately is the common denominator. So when I was growing up, I would move different places or just be in different locations, travel a lot, loved it. But the one constant thing that I could do at that point that I knew of was taking a shower. And at that moment, I didn't know it was a shower meditation I was doing. But essentially, I would take a shower, I would close my eyes, and I would take deep breaths and blow out. And I would just feel the water embody me all around, right? And so now that's been a constant thing. Anytime I feel overwhelmed or feel like a sensory overload, I take a shower, I cleanse my body, or you could call it a shower meditation. And I really just ground myself in where I am and come back into balance with all of the different areas of myself. That's one way. Another way that I like to do it is I go out in nature. I take a walk. You can do that anywhere for the most part, weather permitted, depending on where you are in the world. Go for a walk, 5, 10, 15 minutes, no technology, no nothing. And you're just there with you and Mother Nature, you and your thoughts. And the third way is I like to play basketball or simply meditate for a few minutes. get a couple shots up there. Uh, Close my eyes. There's something powerful about just simply closing your eyes for even 10 seconds and then opening your eyes slowly and re-experiencing the world again. If you play video games out there, um, it feels like you are regrouping or respawning in a different area. And you're just, it's a new day, you know, a refresh, if you will. But yeah, those are how I do it. Is there any way that you currently preheat your mind, or maybe you have a different term for it?
Yeah, preheating your mind, I think, is very creative. I love that idea. I've never heard it, so that's cool. But I will journal, meditate. I make sure, at first it was a practice that kind of felt like a little bit of work, that I felt I would berate myself if I didn't do it. And then I, kind of learned, I don't need to do that. Berate myself for not doing it. So then I was like, okay, then I'll just be casual about it. So now I just focus on, it's not work, it's not practice. What it is I'm looking for pleasure. The beginning of the day for me starts with pleasure. So I get pleasure from resting. I absolutely believe that closing my eyes, taking out the visual sensory overload, can really help me ground and be more in my body. I'm trying to orient myself toward my body, feel all the sensations that are there. And that requires a lot of stillness. And if I'm eating breakfast, I'll make sure that it's something that I really want and that I'm paying attention to the texture and the taste and that I'm enjoying it thoroughly. So that's how I have reoriented myself around this practice. I make sure I start my day with feeling great. That way I can go out into the world and not feel like pressured and rushed. And so if there's any kind of pressure and rushing, I'm like, whoa, everything needs to stop. I need to make sure I have enough time. And that's kind of something that brings me back to what you said about raising a king, which is making sure that he knows himself and he's caring for himself spiritually, physically, mentally. That stuff takes time. And we are not in a society that tells us that we should be taking the time to take care for ourselves. We are in a society that tells us we should spend the majority of our time working for somebody else and rushing around and being distracted and not orienting ourselves toward pleasure. And that's how we end up very much disempowered and disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from our genius and our wants. So,
and disease. Think about, why would they want us to always be distracted and working for somebody else's dream? It's because then you go into something I like to call autopilot mode. You're just going through life. You're not living life with intention, and rather life is happening to you rather than from you. And when that happens, then you're always at the mercy of, oh, this thing happened to me, or this thing happened to me. I can't believe this. And it's like all that is happening because of the autopilot, going from what you eat, how you wake up in the morning, immediately rushing, like you said, getting into the storyline that you have told yourself you have to live. It's like life happens at any moment that you decide it begins. It happens and it can dramatically change when you decide that it changes. I feel so strongly about that. And it sounds like you are a very, very intentional person, especially with your mindful eating, being very in tune with how it looks, how it tastes, what kind of sense you feel right when it hits your mouth. It's like all these things put together create an experience rather than just eating whatever and then doing whatever. And it's like that always baffled me once I started to think, why am I eating when I'm eating? Is it because I actually enjoy it? Or is it because it's just the quickest, easiest thing that can satisfy this hunger? What is hunger? What is my body looking for? I
Right.
never even thought about that.
Yeah, and that's so important. When I tried following all kinds of different diets, and in March, I went to a retreat and I came back and I lost a pound a day for 25 days. And I, since then, like, I think I've lost a total of 50 pounds or 60 pounds.
I was
And
going to say, you're glowing. You seem like you're glowing right now.
and all that I changed was paying attention to what my body wants to eat. If I'm having a craving, and I don't crave sugar because I haven't eaten sugar for a very long time because it just makes me really tired. So I don't have sugar cravings.
Everybody.
Yeah. But when I started noticing, paying attention to how my body feels after I eat something, I learned to take some things out and to only eat the things that makes my body feel good. And one of the ways I actually did that, I take a supplement. It's something they eat in India regularly. It's a combination of neem and turmeric. And I actually heard Sadhguru talk about it on Instagram or somewhere. And so I was like, I'll try that. And I started that, and it informed me quickly which foods that my body could not tolerate. It made it clear. And so, like, if I kind of go off that path and I'm starting to eat for convenience, I won't feel good again. And so it's been amazing. And I'm also actually eating things that I enjoy the taste of, instead of feeling like I should eat it because it's a variety. Like, we don't actually need as much nutritional variety as we think.
And we don't need to eat as much as we think as well.
No,
we don't. They teach us got to eat several different meals a day. It's like, if we ate when we were actually hungry and we drank the amount of water or just overall beverage that we're supposed to drink or our body needs, and everybody is different, we would eat a lot less. And the sugar, completely agree on the sugar thing, as well as I was thinking the other day, when I used to eat Chipotle, I would think, why do I get so darn tired after? Why am I so tired? What is it? It makes sense. It's like, if you're just eating the things that your body seemingly makes, or the things that make your body feel good, and we listen to our body, we have that mind-body connection, there's so many things that would be taken out. It's mind-boggling, and it makes you think. Once you become aware of that, at least it made me think, well, why wasn't I ever taught this before? Why was I never, by various accounts, whether it's the doctors that would come to the school and say, oh, this is the pyramid of what you should, what? Is that what I should eat? Or are you trying to prep me up for later on in life when all these different things and ailments come up? I learned recently that most illnesses or diseases are caused from inflammation, which ultimately comes from mucus. The mucus in our body is formed from all these different foods that are traditionally just marketed right in our face each and every day in every way. It's wild. It's wild to think that.
Well, it's interesting that it raises the question, should the government be telling us what we should be ingesting, eating, and how to take care of our health? Because most of the guidance that they're getting is from corporate lobbyists who are paying politicians to put these things into the code and push their products on us. So we've got the dairy industry, we've got the meat industry, we've got the grains industries, we've got the pharmaceutical industry. So we're being poisoned for profit. And it's not that the politicians are evil and they want everybody to die. Okay, maybe a couple are, but overall, it's just good business for them. They're gonna do what gets them paid. They're gonna do what gets them elected. It's not really, they don't care about much else. I mean, maybe some of them do.
That's the problem. That's the problem right there. Everybody has become an asset. Or actually, not everybody, but the human experience has become an asset to a few. And I see this going the way it's going right now towards a Wall-E. Have you ever seen Wall-E?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Going that direction, which it isn't too good, right?
Yeah.
Especially the way the earth is being polluted and how the focus has been on many other things rather than bettering the human experience by mental, physical, and everything in between. And then that made me think also, I ultimately want to run for president in 2028. One of the reasons is because of how we've all just gone completely off our path. It's like at one point, like you said, none of these politicians, or most of the politicians, I don't believe, want to just have everybody get sick or whatever the case may be. They just want money, right? And so I think at every level of political power, all these people were kids at one point. They were children. They were people who saw the world with innocence. They saw the hope in the world. And now they've become so far off the path that they don't see any hope in the world. They know what kind of darkness goes on in the world, and they don't see that hope. And I think it just starts with one. It just starts with one. And so changing the way that America and hopefully eventually parts of the world as well operate, I think could be better for the human experience. And right now, we're just not doing a good job. Or not we, they aren't doing a good job. And what is necessary for the longevity of the human experience.
Yeah. And gosh, that point about them seeing, they do see the dark stuff. And yes, of course, you start to lose hope and you start to feel disempowered when you're focused on that and it's in your face every day. And it's also, we feel as voters, I would say, pretty disempowered, like our votes don't count, like it's all being manipulated. But what does count is our dollars and the way that we spend them. And so, if we want to demand that these companies stop wasting so many resources, just look at the packaging of their products. There's a bag in a box with glue. Like, we don't need all of that. Just demand that they put it in a simple recyclable paper bag. And then there's the recycling issue, which actually isn't happening since COVID. Apparently, China was buying the recycling from us before, and once COVID hit, it wasn't a profitable business anymore. So the recycling is being separated into different cans, but it is being put into landfills. It's not actually getting recycled. And to not tell the population that, because you're afraid you're going to lose votes, prevents the population from coming up with a workable solution. People are smart. They're not dumb. They'll find, there's people out here who have great ideas and they will find solutions, but they have to know the problem exists.
That's so true. That's such a great point. That's probably one of the biggest problems that's going on in this country, I'm sure many other countries, is there is a separation between the people and the people who make the choices for the people. And when there is a unification, that's kind of like if your body was just doing its own thing and your mind was like, hey, it's like, why would that ever be beneficial to anybody involved? We need everybody united. It makes me think of when we were all in middle school, high school, elementary school, and we had these science projects. And a lot of times it was, okay, we need such and such to be fixed, or okay, make this bulb light up in your own way. And everybody came up with a creative solution. And it's like any of those use cases can be used. I was just recently in a hackathon for the Phoenix government, or Phoenix Department of Innovation, and they wanted a way to come up with, to essentially deploy into Arizona so people could experience cold water at each of these water fountains, because they're 120 degrees or whatever throughout the summer. They wanted a better way, and they felt as though there's no trust in the current water fountains out there. Pretty disgusting, you know. The idea of drinking at a water fountain now is vastly different than when I was growing up. I would drink at water fountains all the time. You know, like now it's like I would never touch that thing. I know they don't know where that water is coming from. It hasn't been clean, hasn't been treated, whatever. So we were part of this hackathon, which there are 5 different teams, and the winner would get like $2,500. But the main idea was to have an idea come forth that could actually help. Why aren't we doing that with every kind of idea or problem that's going on in America right now? Why isn't that a thing? You know how many different teachers, different people in general, every walk of life, that have an idea that could potentially change everything.
Yeah,
that's what the
absolutely.
That's what the marketing of America has been. Everybody's got a shot. Okay, let's all put that together. You know, my goodness.
And part of the issue is the government contract bids. It's quite a process to get to become eligible to bid, because I did it. And they generally take the lowest bid. And we have politicians that know that the bids are going out. And so they and their family members form a company, and they don't care if they do a great job on it. They're just willing to take the funds. So they'll win that bid because they know how to win it, and they know where to come in on their bid. And so we've got that going on, which prevents real workable solutions, real companies by the people from benefiting from it. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. There are plenty of American companies that are getting government contract bids, but we do have some of that happening, and that's got to be addressed.
Some things shouldn't be about money. Some things should not involve money. You know what one thing should be? Healthcare. The whole health industry. Why is that a business? One, it shouldn't be for profit. Straight like that. There should be a certain amount of dollars they get every year. That's just what it is. Do with it what you need to or what you can. This is what you get. No more than that. Like, if that's always, I just saw a stat the other day I forgot where, it might have been New York Times or somewhere, that said Moderna lost $3.8 billion in the last quarter because of weak demand for COVID vaccines. And it said that they had 15 products lined up for the next 5 years to roll out. And it's like, you know what any business wants when they come out with some new products? They want some demand. You know what's going to come from that kind of demand? Some sickness. That's just what it is. It's like, why would we want to live in a world where there's companies out there actively hoping that people get sick, and in some cases might help them get sick? You never know, you know?
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
It
doesn't make sense. You know, we need the most efficient solutions, the smartest solutions, not the cutting the corners and doing something unethical, inhumane to generate demand for a product that doesn't make sense. So
Doesn't make
again,
sense.
consumers have to stop demanding those products. And one of the ways we stop demanding those products is by not listening to the propaganda that we're being fed, that we need those products because there's a big scary sickness out there that isn't that scary. It's there, but it isn't that scary. Not for most people. So,
And if it is out there, you know what else is out there? The natural answer to it.
exactly.
It's out there.
But by keeping us distracted on our cell phones and isolated inside and telling us we can't trust nature and we shouldn't trust anything but what we see on the news, or somebody else is giving us guidance all the time and we don't make room for our own guidance, we can't see the real solutions that exist because there's no space for them. So tell us about the universe, because I think we got off on some tangents.
Absolutely. The universe. What specifically about the universe? What would you like to know?
Is it a business? Is it a coaching thing? Yeah.
So it is a business that is ultimately looking to raise the vibration of people throughout the world. What that means, or what that looks like and means to us, is helping people learn and practice the tools so that they can have a tool belt of different things that empower them throughout the day. One very obvious use case is parents or people in highly stressed positions. Really understanding how to regulate their nervous system and emotions in different situations in which it may be a very highly stressed kind of moment. Knowing about the concept of preheating your mind, how to preheat your mind, how to really put the best version of yourself out there and bring yourself back to balance and ground yourself when you do need that space, when things are really coming at you or you feel as though that's happening. And so we do that through a couple different ways. The first way is our platform, in which we have breathwork techniques and sequences for people to learn and practice. Sound baths. I'm an avid believer in sound healing as well as breathwork in any of these modalities, but I really align with sound and breathwork. Meditation, yoga nidra, sleep-based meditation, and really transitioning the mind from different brain waves to more calm brain waves where you're really in a relaxed state and your body and your consciousness is awake, but your physical body is resting, a deep rest. And then also yoga and understanding what each sequence is and why you're doing it that way, what it's doing internally for your body, and just all these things that I find really interesting because it makes you feel like a superhero. You feel like you have these different movements or different super moves that you can do that ultimately brings your health back to where it could be and where it should be, you know? So, yeah, we do that for different corporations. And then also we host community events, and we have, as I said, the platform in which people can experience it daily, weekly, however often they so choose.
And those modalities, I've experienced most of them. I've studied them, but I didn't really teach why they work or what they do. But I think ultimately they kind of put our body in a state of relaxation to get to the deeper layers of our mind, the subconscious, to transform kind of our belief systems and bring our body back to rest so that it can heal and repair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to piggyback off of that, there's this thing or concept that I heard of: slow thinking and fast thinking. Fast thinking would be for like things that don't have a huge impact on your life, that you can just think of really quickly. What color shirt should I wear? Okay, navy blue. Boom. Things like that. Slow thinking are for things that ultimately have a bigger impact on your life, long term and short term. And so I find that when you meditate, when you do any of these modalities, it brings your body and mind and consciousness into that state of relaxation, like you had mentioned. And it also allows you to really be in control of what kind of thinking you're going to do. A lot of people use fast thinking for things that they maybe want to use slow thinking for, and then vice versa for slow thinking for a lot of things that maybe should be fast thinking, you know? And so
Yeah.
really just being cognizant of those different things can really give you a different outlook or perspective on life, and make you feel like you're manifesting the life that you want to live rather than the life that you have to live.
Yeah, like you said at the beginning, where everything is just happening to me and, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with this. Yeah, when we come into life from this direction, we don't see it that way, and we don't experience it that way, and things drastically change for the better when you're approaching life proactively.
Exactly. It's coming from you. It's coming from,
Yeah.
I think it, I want it, I go do it. I experience it.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of
it.
getting out of that victim triangle where, oh my gosh, my circumstances are determined now by all the things that happened to me in the past, the way I grew up. I didn't grow up with money, so I can't do anything. And it's true that if you start life with more money, stuff's easier. It can be. But you could also be dealing with a whole lot of subconscious programming from your family that tells you you're a piece of shit unless you do what you should, what they think you should do. And then you end up in a position like a person who sees all the bad stuff and they can't see all the good and they have no hope. And then they're implementing policies that are detrimental to humanity and the future for everybody.
And then it becomes a cycle.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're really ending up in the same place when we come at life from a subconscious level and we haven't dealt with our programming, or seen it and learned to love it and learn to integrate all the parts of ourselves.
That's so
Can
true.
you speak to the platform? You talked about the platform. What does that look like?
So currently our platform is a user-friendly, beautifully designed space where you can literally, you sign up and then you can experience, whether it's a sound bath meditation, yoga, or a breathwork sequence, or you can hear some different stories and other people discussing their experiences with just overall mindfulness and what it's done for them. Or you can learn different techniques and how to do a different breath sequences that can bring you back to the present moment. You can book a group session or come to one of our community events. And also, if you have a corporation that you feel as though may be able to benefit from it, speak with us and we can come see what we can do to help out. Because a lot of times, employers aren't necessarily trying to create a negative environment, but sometimes it just happens that way. And so we can help train and really just guide people back to the path. You know, that's our main thing, is empowering people with the tools, and then now you can do with it what you will. But just know you always have a space where you belong in the universe.
Yeah. And gosh, being the leader of an organization is very much like parenting. So when you haven't preheated your mind for the day and things go off the rails in your company, you might not be reacting to your employees very positively, thinking they're intending. I used to actually think that my kids, they're testing me. They're pushing their boundaries, and certainly they do. They want to know what they can get away with and what they can't. But it's not from the intention of wanting to see how pissed off I'll get. Like they're just seeing what life can be, and I'm over here reacting from my wounded inner child because I'm copying what my parents did. So as employers, if we haven't done that inner work, our work environment might be pretty toxic, and so we'll need we need people to come in and teach us and teach our employees and create a more cohesive work environment, and that'll make the company more profitable. It'll make the employees want to stay longer.
Retention is a big thing, especially with burnout and everything. I loved every point you just made. Like, people think sometimes it's, oh, they paid them more money, they're obviously going to. Sometimes, yes, money is the factor, not going to lie. But sometimes it's, you know what, maybe this person would take less if they felt as a one, they belonged. Two, they were cared for, like they weren't just another number. Three, you create an environment in which people actively cared about one another and liked being there. I cannot tell you how many different organizations I've been a part of where I felt I'm just another number. I'm one bad day away from getting fired and then having to find a different kind of livelihood. That's a terrible way to be. Imagine being in a relationship and thinking that your partner is just one argument away from breaking up with you. What kind of stability does that make you feel inside? As a kid, you talked about feeling like you wanted to belong, me as well. I'm sure countless other people out there. Imagine if you felt like you were one test away from your parents leaving you. That's a scary feeling. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about that. Like that is a feeling that nobody wants to feel. Make people feel cared about. We're all big little kids.
Exactly. And so many people are living in that place, from that place, in their relationships, in their jobs. Everything can feel very threatening if that's the lens that you're seeing the world through. And whether it really is or not is totally up to you, ultimately.
1000%.
Yeah. So how do people find you?
They can go on the YUNIVERSE.Earth, spelled THEYUNIVERSE.Earth, or you can find us on Instagram as well, Into the Universe. We will be at different community events throughout California, Arizona, and Washington, the state. As of right now, we would love to expand that. So if you guys have any different community events that you would like us to be a part of, or if you believe there is a company or a corporation out there that you think we could actively help, let us know. You can contact us on our website.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me today. This has been really fun. And maybe we can have some events, work together. One of the most beautiful ways for practitioners to work together is to trust that we've got it, like to decide to work together and not micromanage and control each other. That's something that happens in a lot of businesses and a lot of community events. And I've even seen it in spiritual circles. So it's really lovely when we can all get together and be like, this is a professional. I need to take my perfectionist people pleaser and put her in the back seat and let her just enjoy the ride.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah. So
That
that's
sounds
something
good to me, though.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's stay in contact, and I'll put your information in the episode description. And see you soon.
Sounds good. The universe.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.